The next section is about attention. You need to pay attention to what matters most. So you're probably asking, how many tasks should I work on at once? Several studies have been done that show that multitasking is less productive than working on a single task at a time. Most of what we think is multitasking is actually serial tasking. So we'll start one task and switch to another and keep doing that, rather than actually working on multiple tasks at a time. Now, the exception to the rule for multitasking is when you're working on something that's a cognitively straightforward task, like going for a walk. If you've done that thousands of times before, take your iPod with you. Neither of those things require too much concentration. And if you're not learning to work the iPod, for example, and you've done that many times too, then you can do both of those things at once. But if you're learning something new, and that is, it's a cognitively demanding task, or something that requires a lot of brain power, you should only perform one cognitively demanding task at a time. In order to help you focus, you need to switch technology off. Information is abundant, so making better decisions and taking action on things is not about more information. Information is not thinking. So you need to give yourself time to disconnect without the external stimuli that telling you what to think and when to think it, and take that time to think for yourself. I would suggest forming deeper connections with people, particularly if you're working in a team or you're working on a group assignment together, working on a business. Just having updates on social media are not connections. You need to form deeper connections with people to get the value out of those relationships. And I think we have a lot of connections these days because of social media, and we stay up to date on what people are doing on a superficial level, and we don't really connect with them on that deeper level to form better relationships. Distraction is not productivity. So obviously your technology is designed these days to distract you and to get you using, as a mobile phone for example, it's designed so that you get notifications when anybody contacts you on social media, when they text you, when they email you, when the phone's ringing, when you have a message, a voice message of some sort. So we live in this world where we get constant notifications, and it's designed to keep us using that device. But although we feel busy, that doesn't necessarily mean we're being productive. So busyness is our addiction, but productivity is what will get us somewhere. And that addiction I'm talking about to urgency, technology actually multiplies that addiction. Okay, why do you need to learn to say no? Well, there's a lot of good reasons, really. We have limited attention spans, so we need to pay attention to one thing, but in order to do that, we need to say no to other things around us. We have constant demands on our attention, particularly with marketers knowing that they're in the attention game now, with so many more mediums for them to reach us, and also for 24-hour news on pretty much any industry that you want to get news on. There's plenty of information out there and you're bombarded with it every day. So we have limited attention spans. We need to say no and block out some of this information. Say no to people's requests sometimes. There is an opportunity trade-off for everything we do. So for everything we say yes to, we're devoting time and resources to that. Perhaps the other resource is money, perhaps it's people that we work with. And there's a trade-off. That means that there's something else that we cannot do. So you need to make sure that the opportunity that we're missing is not bigger than what we're choosing to focus on. And sometimes if you just automatically say yes to everyone and every opportunity, then you can be missing something that's more important to you. There is a stigma attached to saying no. You've probably heard the phrase that, people like a yes person. That might be the case, but these days if you're a yes person, you're going to spend all of your time working on somebody else's goals. That stigma that I was talking about is attached to the idea that you're selfish or not a team player. And of course that's not the case. It may be that you're working on something that's particularly important to the team, or that your individual role, in order for you to fulfill it, you need to say no to other areas. The feeling of guilt that you get is a primitive emotion. So it actually manipulates you by bypassing your logic. So that feeling of guilt is experienced in a part of your brain that was formed long before your higher order thinking brain. So when somebody tries to manipulate you, they're trying to stop you from making a logical decision. So don't fall for it. Particularly, there's people that will do this again and again once they realise that making you feel guilty works. They're just going to try it again next time. And saying no to others is saying yes to your goals. So as I said, we have limited time, limited money. You need to learn what you say yes to, but you need to say no to everything else that interferes with that. How to say no. This is probably the thing most people struggle with. I find that people are ambiguous when they say no, so they're kind of uncertain about what they're actually saying to people, and they don't want to cause offence, so they don't make it very clear that they're saying no. So be firm and clear when you're saying no. So it doesn't mean you don't be polite, but you need to say something in there that lets people know you're saying no. Now there's a few ways that you might be able to do this. You can probably brainstorm some ways for your particular situation or industry, but one of the ways might be to say, I'm not the right person for this. I've passed your information on to, and insert the name of the right person here. And if you want to follow up, you should follow up with that person. I'm not across all of the information, so I'm probably not the best person to deal with this. You might be able to find more and give them a place to find the additional information. So it's not your responsibility to follow that up. I don't have time right now, particularly if people need things done urgently, and you legitimately don't have the time because you're working on other things. Tell them you don't have the time, but you will look at it later when you get a chance, and you may have some time down the track, but often you will find that people go away and solve that problem on their own anyway, or they find somebody else to solve that problem for them. I've passed your request along, as I said before. Give them the name of another contact person and give them the details of that person if it's appropriate to follow up with them. I have another meeting at that time. That's an obvious one if you have another meeting or you have another commitment. So if it's not a meeting with one of your clients or with one of your partners, it could be that you have another commitment. I'm very busy this week. Could I perhaps take a look at it next week? This is probably my favourite because you can go back to your boss. I don't have time for both of these things. So which one would you rather me do first? So particularly when, and I've had the example a few times of when people have told me they've been overloaded with work and their bosses come and give them a file to work on rather urgently. Put the ball back in their court and say, I don't have time for both. Which would you rather me do first?